Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Identity Insights by Indicio. We have something a little bit special for you this week. Some of the Indicio team is currently at IIW, or Internet Identity Workshop, and I was able to catch up with Indicio's Deputy CTO, Sam Curren, to talk a little bit about the day's events. So here are some excerpts from that conversation. Thank you so much for joining me today, Sam. I understand Indicio, right, at IIW hosted a couple sessions today. Would you mind telling me a little bit about those?
We did. We were involved in a couple of different discussions. One in particular was about a governance effort. This is decentralized ecosystem and machine-readable governance, and the efforts between the Decentralized Identity Foundation to combine the trust establishment work with the trust over IP trust registry work. The overlap is intense, and there's only a little bit of differences, and so we figured out that we need to work together. We had been working on that prior to IIW, and here at IIW, we held a session today with Daryl O'Donnell and I talking about the fact that we were doing this in joining efforts. And at the time, there's also some paperwork being done in the background by the various organizations so that we can create this joint work item with the joint output of the spec that we'll be working on. There's a lot of interest. We've been talking about, as Indicio, we've been talking about the issues of establishing trust in the governance for a while. And last IIW was the first IIW where people really perked up about it. And then this one, there's like an explosion of interest. And so it's very clear that our ecosystem is ready to solve these problems and to move forward with this. So it's exciting. There was at least one other group that said, hey, we're doing something similar. We want to join the discussion so that we can work towards a common goal. And so those discussions should be pretty darn exciting. That was a good session. There was a handful of other sessions. I was at a particularly exciting one today. There was a bunch of funny tweets related to this, but Torsten Lauterstadt and I held what we call the deathmatch session between DIDCOM and OpenID Connect for verifiable credentials for presentations and issuance, and to have a deathmatch between the two. And it was a lot of made up controversy, but it was very fun. And a packed session, at least 100 people in the room, where we talked about the differences. And the whole point of the exercise was to increase everyone's understanding about the various features that each of them had. And so the OpenID approach that they have is very focused on credentials, but perhaps maybe a little easier and a little more straightforward. And the DIDCOM approach has a lot more breadth of features and possibilities, but maybe a little bit more complex. And so being able to draw that out was really good. It was a great discussion. I enjoyed it, and everyone benefited from it. And it was great to host that session with Torsten. So that also was really good. There was another discussion that I was involved in earlier, slightly on the same topic, but about how both DIDCOM and OpenID integrate into the trust over IP trust spanning layer, which is the communication protocol that they use. So those were the ones that I was involved in today. Mike was also involved in a couple of discussions, but it was a great time. Heather was here as well. Heather Dahl, our CEO, was here and joined at least one of the discussions in between some other busy meetings she had today. So it was pretty nice to be involved in the sessions as they went.
All right, that sounds super cool. From all those discussions and sessions that you were talking about, was there any like action items or new ideas that you got from those besides that you didn't already know about?
One of them was that I think that we have DIDCOM as something that we've been invested in for a long time, and I think we've made a lot of progress. I think we do have some work. It's been accepted that it's a useful protocol generally by the community. I'm not trying to say that everyone agrees, but generally speaking, it's become accepted. What we have a little bit more work to do to help people understand that it isn't maybe as heavy as they might have imagined, and it's relatively easy to use. So there's some examples that we need to give and be a little bit more clear about that in the future. But overall, I think that was really good, and that was there. I think one of the things that I appreciate about IIW is that you get to have real direct conversations with everyone, and so it helps me to understand things better. Not just about how to explain things better, but learning details about other related technologies and how things can combine together in a really useful way. So I always appreciate that about the sessions here at IIW.
So I know that while you were doing your sessions, Mike also had a session today presenting on the governance editor that Indicio has been working on. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, so today at IIW there was a demo hour where lots of people set up demos to be able to give an example, and people could walk around and visit the various demos and learn about them. And Mike had one where he demonstrated the governance editor. There was a session held on it yesterday And so he spent time, walking people kind of through how it went. We had one of our team members had created a video that walked through that, and Mike was able to explain stuff at the same time. So he had a full table every time I walked by, and was able to explain a lot of what we were doing. It's cool because we were not demonstrating a product for people to buy in this particular case, but rather work that we do that will be open source as well as contribute directly to the proven product line. And so it was really fun to say, hey, here's the work that we've done. It's open. You can join our efforts if you like, and learn from it and benefit from it. And so there's lots of interest in that because of the overall general interest in governance that IIW has demonstrated this time. Nearly every conversation yesterday and today about machine readable governance and decentralized ecosystem governance, we've had new people. And so we end up covering kind of an overview of the concepts for the people that are kind of just joining the conversation. So tons of interest in solving and learning about that ecosystem governance components.
Did you get any new ideas? Sorry, I just want to hear, what you've kind of learned from the conference. Did you get any new ideas on governance from that demonstration or just from the sessions today?
Definitely some new ways of explaining things or helping people to understand. It's a super hot issue, and so as we develop, it helps people understand it better, which then leads to more questions and more ideas. And so as we go, it's really useful. As the work continues in the community, it'll be interesting to see kind of where people want to draw the line for this first effort and what things we may want to delay for future efforts just for the additional complexity. So there's a little bit of a choice that the community will end up needing to make there about where it goes. But overall, really pretty great.
So could you tell me just briefly an overview of what the governance editor that we've been working on is and what it can do for people?
Absolutely. The machine readable governance files that we use are decisions and rules encoded into a data file, a JSON file. And obviously, we don't expect people to manually edit those files as they are trying to administer ecosystems. And so the governance editor is a visual way of encoding the decisions about which issuers are authorized for which schemas and verifiers, et cetera, in a visual tool that helps make that clear, that can then export the data in the serialized form that we need. And so that editor helps those that don't really want to hand edit data files like JSON, and that's kind of all of us, to be able to make changes to those files and save them in the proper data format. And so it's a much easier way, and it helps people to visualize what's going on if they are not computer nerds that understand the syntax of data files. And so it makes it more approachable for more folks, and particularly those that have the business rule decisions in front of them, and how to apply that to the governance that we're working on. So it's the bridge between sort of the business rules and the technology, and helping people understand that.
So it sounds like the demo hour was super cool. Were there any other interesting sessions or conversations that you had today that you think, would be kind of a highlight of IIW?
So there was a really good one. This actually happened last night at dinner, but this was after Mike reported with you yesterday. I talked to Manu Sporny, who's involved in the JSON LD community and with linked data at the W3C, and talked about, Mike mentioned yesterday that there was some confusion about the ability to dynamically load context at runtime, and about the general advice that currently exists to not do so. And I talked to Manu yesterday and then a little bit this morning about that problem, and we talked about ways that might be solved through the same governance methods that we're actually using in a project that he's working on called Trustless, which likely will be joined together in the future. But that's a way that we can get around that limitation of JSON LD by only loading trusted context, but being able to do so at runtime in a way that would be really useful. And so there's some nice advantages to doing so. And it was great to have that conversation with Manu to talk about the problem, how it affects the community, and then also come up with maybe a potential solution that can ease adoption and expand the use of JSON LD credentials in areas where it was difficult before because of the dynamic loading limitation that had existed. So I learned a lot in that conversation. It's really great to talk to people directly. Manu was fantastic to talk to, and I think that this might lead to a really nice innovation in the ecosystem that will help these things to be more useful more broadly.
Sorry, just for those of us not super familiar with JSON LD, right? If you could just quickly break down what it is currently like or has been like, and what this new innovation would do to people using it.
For sure. So linked data is what the LD stands for, and that relates to the idea of describing data in a semantic way that enables the semantic web. And what that means is that each piece of data is tagged with its meaning, which means it's easier to understand more precisely the data contained in a data structure and what it means in the real world. For example, in schemas, sometimes you refer to someone's name as just name, or maybe first name, given name. There's a handful of different things to do that. And if you apply the semantics, the vision of JSON-LD is that you can apply the semantics clearly in a way that you can tell that the different attributes are the same in all credentials, regardless of what name they're actually using in the credential itself. And so that type of semantic designation can help you use data that you haven't really encountered before, or to be more precise in how you're doing it. There's a data graph concept called RDF that relates to this heavily as well. And so JSON-LD is the application of the linked data concept to JSON-based credentials. And so it's also used in the signature type of JSON-LD credentials in a way that helps you to canonically sign the credential in a precise way. So JSON-LD is one of the credential technologies very popular in the W3C community credentials working group, and in use with the W3C data model format. And so that effort is popular among not the whole community, but a sizable portion of it. And then in this innovation that we talked about, hopefully will help it be more acceptable to a broader community.
That was pretty much everything in my notes. Is there anything else that you want to cover that you'd like, to talk about?
Nope.
Question?
Just that it's really good. One of the things about IIW that's really awesome is that the dinners, Tuesday night and Wednesday night are always included. And people go to the dinners and they keep talking and they have fantastic conversations there. And so that's a really cool aspect. Last night we were at a place in town for the event, and then tonight the dinner is actually here at the Computer History Museum. So in a minute I'll go and join the dinner there. But the cool part is that people keep talking about all these really neat things at dinner, and so it's good because it's fantastic. The minor side effect is that you end the day pretty darn exhausted, just because of all the great conversations that folks have had. So I love IW. I'm really glad to be here, and hopefully this little bit of sharing the day with you is useful to those watching.
Absolutely. Well, no, I'll let you go then, Sam. Appreciate the time, and we'll talk to you later.
Thanks, Tim.
Thank you all so much for watching. If you like the content, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, and we'll continue to bring you some more news and interesting information from around the decentralized identity community.